This is a Squiz podcast. We're your shortcut to being informed.
Our podcast today is brought to you by HubSpot. We all need more breathing room in our work days, and HubSpot gives it to you. Breeze, their built-in AI, takes care of the busy work so you can focus on growth. Welcome to The Call Sheet, the podcast that goes behind the scenes of Australia's entertainment industry, meeting the creative minds giving shape to our culture. I'm Andrew Williams. Marker. Aunty Donna is a sketch comedy group from Melbourne. You might know them from their YouTube channel, their podcast, their Netflix series, Aunty Donna's Big Ol' House of Fun, or their ABC show, Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe. Or maybe you've never heard of them, and that's fine, because this conversation isn't entirely about their on-screen work. One reason I wanted to speak with them is because they are doing something genuinely innovative behind the scenes. They've launched their own production company and a distribution platform called Grouse House, and through that, they're building a new kind of business model, one that's focused on helping the next generation of comedy talent build sustainable careers. But that was not always the plan. So in this episode, I chat with two members of the group, Mark Bonanno, you might know his face if you've seen their sketches, and Sam Lingham, who works more behind the scenes as a writer and director. We talk about how they got started, the big moments that led them to here, and why they're working to shift the industry from the inside out. Sam and Mark, thank you so much for joining us on The Call Sheet.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us here, Andrew.
It's an absolute pleasure. I wanted to ask, first of all, about what we're talking about when we talk about the entity that is Aunty Donna. How did you first meet? And I guess, how did you discover that sketch comedy was the thing that you could do and wanted to do together?
So we all met at the University of Ballarat. So all of us were studying acting down there. We knew we wanted to do comedy, but there was never any talk about like what form we wanted to do early on. We sort of just hung out and we would meet every month or so and we'd sort of just chat and just talk through ideas or what we wanted to be or what we didn't want to be very early on. Quite lofty ideas for people who'd done nothing. But, you know, we're like, let's...
Hey, got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that initial year was just a bunch of people sitting down and going, if we were to do something, if we were to do comedy, what would we do? And we sort of landed on people haven't done stupid and just dumb and like irreverent. Like that felt like it hadn't been like, you know.
It was missing for a bit, you know.
Yeah,
I
like
think.
sketch felt very intellectual and it also felt dead. That was another very big thing. I remember a big conversation being about sketch because we were like, a play's too big. Sketch is nice and small and we can just work on, you know, for our first thing, we can work on a bunch of little small things, put them together and that'll be easy. But like in our first year at Melbourne Comedy Festival, you couldn't classify your show as sketch. That wasn't a category. It didn't exist anymore, right?
Right.
Whether it had in the past, I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it didn't exist, which was a very clear indicator to us.
So your show could be a stand-up show. I think it could be... Theatre.
Cabaret. Maybe that was it.
I think so,
Yeah, but sketch didn't exist. And like, I don't know, not to toot our own horn, but I think maybe we had a little bit to do with bringing that category into the... Oh, look, I don't know if that's true or not, but it's interesting that you just couldn't do that at the start. And so that was another big thing of like, yeah, that's, you know, hole in the market.
Yeah. I was just about to say, it's like any business really, you've identified a gap in the market. And it's funny thinking about, I mean, I remember when I was growing up and just watching so much Australian comedy on TV, how much of it was sketch-based, like Full Frontal and the Comedy Company. And
in the early noughties, every major network had a sketch show.
Yeah.
But it felt like it was mostly observational rather than your sort of brand of surrealism and irreverence. So maybe that's also something that you were able to kind of move it forward in. Do you think? Is that fair?
Well, I think so. I mean, I have to bring up the McAuliffe program. Incredible show.
My favourite show of all time.
Yeah, it was that we felt like it hadn't been done for a while. Like it had been 10 years since, longer than something like McAuliffe, which was just, like stupidity and absurdity. And like you'd get your little sprinklings of that in your like, you know, in your Big Bite or your Skit House or your Comedy Inc. You know, like there's little bits of it, but it never felt like the core.
I went back and had a look at your YouTube channel and I sorted oldest to newest and I went and had a look at the first video.
Brutal.
You ever put up. I won't link to it in the episode notes for
GPS?
this. Yes,
Yeah.
GPS tries to kill man, posted 13 years ago, according to YouTube.
Oh, I love that sketch.
Yeah, it's great.
And do you remember when you posted that and how it went and how you felt about it at the time?
Yeah.
Putting something like that online.
So we actually shot that not to go online, but rather because we were sort of at a weird forefront in terms of like what was happening with online in the live space. But we wanted to get a really good venue for the comedy festival, like a festival managed venue. And we were like, they're not just going to give one to us because we haven't done anything before. Yeah. So we went to Ballarat for the weekend and we shot a bunch of sketches.
We'd also been told how difficult it was
to
get a festival managed venue.
But, you know, I can be quite obstinate, or we can all be quite obstinate. And we're like, well, we can at least just apply, you know, like, who cares? Like, people are like, that's hard, you won't get that. I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. Let's go. You know, we put an application in. So we drove to Ballarat for the weekend and we shot a bunch of sketches and put them all together and sent those through. And it worked. You know, it got us a venue. They were like, oh, great, these sketches are like, that's 10 minutes of funny sketches. You guys seem like you know what you're doing. We ended up putting those sketches online onto YouTube. And that was the first one I remember when they got to 1,000 views, and I was like, this is incredible. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 people have watched this sketch we've made, which was really,
It was the best of the bunch because there was we filmed a handful of sketches, and all of those sketches were written over like a Facebook group.
Yeah.
Where no one, like, we didn't do any drafts. We didn't have any scripts. It was literally like someone would post an idea for a sketch, and then one day, I was doing my 30th show at the time. I think the day we shot, I had a show that night, and they were awful. But it was the first time the kind of whole group got together and did a thing. And GPS, I think, I still love that joke. I think the joke still stands.
Yeah.
And is a really, really fun joke. It was the best of the bunch. Yeah, without doubt.
How long after that YouTube, you know, posting your first video and then continuing to post videos on YouTube, did you start to think this is a thing, this can be its own thing? When did the commercial element of what you were doing start to factor into your thinking?
So we did our first show, and then a friend of your brother's came.
Mike
DeRobio came, and he was like, hey, I'm putting together a sketch show or a bunch of like random little short things for this series for Channel 31.
It was, you know, very forward thinking at the time, and he tried to pitch this to like ABC and stuff who, you know, wholeheartedly rejected it because it was a new, interesting, good idea. It was this idea that you would make your content, right? You go out to a bunch of different creators. You'd make 4 or 5 minutes. It's called Lost Dog TV. Make 4 or 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minute episodes. You do 6 of them, and then he'd string a bunch of different creators, 4 5-minute bits together into a half-hour show that would air on Channel 31, and then all of the creators then got their individual bits to then upload on their own YouTube channels if they wanted, right? It was like you put it together for the show, and then the content is yours to do with what you wish. Channel 31, by the way, we've been asked to explain, which is absolutely fair enough, is...
Some of us are not from Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's community television.
Community television.
Yeah.
In Melbourne. And it has been this incredible... God, I hope it still exists. I honestly don't know if it does anymore, if it moved online or what it was. But, man, it's like that's where Hamish and Andy got their start.
Yeah.
I think that's where Rove got their start.
Yep.
It's very much where we got our start. It was such a great... incredible a resource for people just to give it a goddamn go, you know? But the thing I want to be very, very clear about is that we were like 24, 25. We didn't know internet. We did not know. We had no friggin' idea what we were doing. None of us really watched YouTube. None of us really engaged with it. We all still, you know, we grew up in the 90s and the early noughties. TV was king, you know, for if you wanted a comedy career. Even though YouTube was popping off, right? YouTube was a very legitimate thing at the time. People had, you know, their entire livelihoods were based around making content on YouTube and getting paid from the ad revenue. It was a very lucrative time for creators on YouTube, and we had zero concept of this. I just want to make that very, very clear.
Yeah, like as I was like, we'd made videos at this point, but one was for a live show, and the other one was to go on community television, and then we put them on YouTube afterwards.
Yeah, because our whole sort of model at the time was, we build an audience doing live shows by touring it around, and then when they go home, I remember saying this, I'm like, and when they go home before they go to bed, they'll go, hey, I really like that show. I'll YouTube those. I'll like look up those guys. Oh, they have some filmed content online. Well, I'll watch that too. That was our plan.
Sort of tide them over to the next live show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then without us really doing much or knowing what we were doing, it flipped.
Yeah.
Because we ended up putting up those Lost Dog sketches, and then there was one. It was one sketch from a longer video, and we just woke up one morning and it had like 130,000 views. We were all like, we just didn't understand. We did not understand why or how, and then we found out. It was because it got posted to Reddit, and all of us were like, "Oh my god, what is Reddit?" No, like we legitimately,
Yeah, like I reversed.
It would have been about that time,
because you can find traffic sources. So I reverse engineered, I think, out of YouTube. I was like, "What's going on here?"
And again, Reddit was not new. Like
you guys really had your finger on the pulse at the time.
We had zero. We were so not online.
Was that about when your thinking flipped and you started looking at this as going, well, this might not be the second or third thing. This is actually might be the first thing. I know you were still very much and still do focus very much on live shows, and we'll talk about that as we go. But was that when things started to turn around?
I would say it, from that, we're like, oh, we've got to make more of this. Let's try and make some more, YouTube, try and get some more numbers because the numbers feel good when they go up. Yes. I don't know if there's any conscious effort at that point to be like, this is going to be the thing that, becomes like our central. Like I can tell you where we end up, but we got there quite gradually. I think it was just more like we did that was good. Let's do more of that.
Yep.
Yeah. But I remember at least a little bit of conscious sort of action in the sense that we went, we're not going to now just do this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It was, and then around about this time we came up with this idea of being platform agnostic because, we'd also gotten some advice. I think maybe this was a little bit later on, but we'd gotten a bit of advice that was, which I still use to this day. I love it. I tell anyone who sort of comes to us that we work with now in our production company or any creators that we talk to. One of the best pieces of advice that we've ever been giving is do not build your house in someone else's backyard, because so many. Yeah, like we got in with this whole scripted content thing. We never really made money from YouTube, right? Like at that point.
No,
right?
it's never really been a money maker for us at all.
Ever.
I would say it's a net loss if you're looking specifically at making videos
that
online.
line.
Yeah, it's kind of like the, it's like our album for recorded artists. It's like you don't make a lot off the album, but it gets people to come to the live show,
the concert tour,
and that's kind of where you can make a bit of money, right? It's always been that for us, but because there were so many people at that time. Like I said, like when we came into the game, I think people who had been building their whole careers, their whole lives off being YouTube creators, it was just starting to fall apart for them because the ad revenue was getting cut and the algorithm started becoming this thing that was changing. And scripted content, which is what it was referred to, what we were doing, had its peak and was starting to die off as we were walking into it. And so, it was like, don't build your house in someone else's backyard. That's one of the reasons why we then went and started a podcast, and thank God, because it ended up being like, like trying to start one now, I think for we do have a fan base, so maybe it wouldn't be as much of a nightmare, but it is such a flooded market now. And when we started it, it didn't felt as much of one.
Do you want to pick up on the production company element? Because you said, don't build your house in someone else's backyard. And I read that you started the production company because you were creating all of this, what would be called now sort of IP, and these ideas and these creative things that you've produced, but you didn't want someone else to own them. You didn't want another production company to own them.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things kind of happened at the same time. Is Screen Australia kind of came and gave us a nod and gave us a tap, and we're like, hey, we have a thing called production funding you can come in for. Like, we'd gotten initiatives before, which are like, there was the Skip Ahead initiative, which is a Google co-funded one where it's like, if you apply for this, they give you this money on this date, and you could make a web series, and we made 1999. And then Screen Oz came to us and they were like, you can just apply to make a web series. Like, it doesn't have to be a part of this thing. You could ask for a budget. And we're like, oh, that's really cool. And then we'd also been having these battles over the years because we were looking at things where we write everything, we star in it, we direct it, we make all the music, we edit it. And we were like, okay, we're making that. We would like to own the thing we're making. Essentially, if you have a vested partner, say the ABC or Screen Australia or someone, they're always contracting with a production company. And they're like, we need the production company to hold the rights to the IP here, because if they don't have it, then we're trusting that you're going to deal with another third party who might then pull that away, basically. Yep. But we were just like, well, this doesn't make sense. So the only way to really circumvent that process is to kind of start your own thing.
Which we, like you said, we essentially already were a production company.
Yeah.
We just hadn't kind of realized it. But one of the biggest moments for us when we kind of realized was when a contract was put in front of us that said it would own the names Mark, Zach, and Broden. Like, a different company would own. And I was like, my mother gave me that name.
Yeah.
You do not get to keep that.
There's only one Mark.
Yeah. And so it was just baffling to us that that's how it worked. And what was more baffling was that when we questioned it, we were just met with such ferocious pushback. And we were just always told, this is how it is, full stop. You cannot change this. You cannot make this different. This is how it's been forever, and it's gotten better. Hollywood used to own people, right? And it just never felt right to us. And then one of the very big things for us when we started our own production company, like I said, it didn't feel like that big of a leap for us.
No,
because it's what we were doing anyway.
Yeah, it's just trying to learn all the other stuff. We've always got, if you've got a good accountant around you, I think you're fairly all right.
And it's what we realized is that we can hire people to just do the things that we, didn't have much clue about, right? And they didn't have to be people that we were potentially tied to for the rest of our lives, right? In perpetuity. It was just people that could come in, help us, and then if they wanted to move on, they could move on. And a very big part of our production company ethos was we wanted to ensure, because what we've discovered is that the production company has to own the IP for whatever it's making for a certain amount of time, right? What a lot of production companies do, and a lot of deals that creatives will sign with production companies, is that after that period of time is done, well, they don't really tell you that. They don't tell creatives that actually, technically, we only need to own the IP during production, right? And then once production is done, the IP is sort of up for grabs. But most of the contracts people will sign is that IP belongs to the production company in perpetuity. And we went, all right, we're going to own it for the time that we need to, but after that, creatives then regain their IP, because it's
a really difficult space. It's like, I think what we're just trying to do is act as kind of transparent and ethically as we can. Genuinely. But it's, sometimes you just need to own things and sometimes you can and you can't.
Yeah.
But I think another interesting thing to look at is Ryan Coogler's film Sinners.
I was just about to bring that up.
Which is getting back in 25 years. And it's great to see that, like, some of these ideas that people are so resistant to in terms of, like, this is the way it's always been done. And it's like, well, Hollywood's shifting now. Like, a Hollywood studio film is shifting back its ownership.
And then, like, I loved all the articles where people are like, this signals the end of the Hollywood studio system as we know it. And it's like, good, because that's a bad system. Like, look at how many people have gotten screwed over by that. Look at how much because it's not run by creatives anymore. It's just run by businessmen. And so, like, maybe that does need to burn.
Yeah.
I also think
we might put a link to the Ryan Coogler story in the show notes, because it is really fascinating. And as you say, you're sort of, in a strange way, a forerunner to that change being made in Hollywood yourselves.
Well,
Yeah, I think Ryan's a big fan of ours and has been following everything we've been saying. I don't know.
Yeah, no, he copied us, and we're currently suing him.
Yeah. I'm assuming that they looked at what you did and went, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, well, we have the same lawyer, so it's interesting.
Oh, we do, don't we?
We do. We have the same lawyer as him.
A message now from HubSpot. Time might be our most precious resource, and that's exactly what HubSpot gives back to growing businesses. Breeze, their built-in AI, handles those repetitive tasks that steal hours from your work week. Imagine a team of Breeze agents creating more content, finding prospects, and delivering better service, all without breaking a sweat. HubSpot customers are generating more leads and closing more deals in days, not months. Visit hubspot.com/AI to learn more. We also have a message from Aware Super, which has just made retirement even more affordable by lowering admin fees by up to 25% for their retired members. With cost of living front of mind for many Aussies, Aware Super is committed to keeping costs lower and delivering the benefits of being one of Australia's largest super funds. So with more of their members' money staying invested and working hard, your retirement savings are in good hands if you're with Aware Super. With lower retirement admin fees, Aware Super is super helpful. And a disclaimer, consider if Aware Super is right for you in the PDS and TMD at aware.com.au. Amount of fee reduction will vary based on account balance. Issued by Aware Super, Proprietary Limited, trustee of Aware Super. If I can fast forward slightly to the Netflix show, and how that came about. When did you first either reach out to or get reached out to by Netflix for that to happen?
Well, I just want to preface all of this with the Netflix show is the most clear example of pure luck that I would say ever. And when I say luck, right, I mean, I believe luck is timing and hard work combined, right? We'd been working very, very, very hard for, 10, 11 years up until that point, something like that, right?
Maybe. No, it's fine.
What?
I was going to say maybe 7.
7? Really, was it?
Like when we pitched, it was 2018.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
There you go. No, don't be sorry. I love historical accuracy.
Yeah, so do we.
Yeah. 7 years we've been working very, very hard. Well, only 7 years, so not that hard.
It's a long time. It's a long time in live comedy.
Yeah.
It felt like a while.
Yeah. And there was, we were back and forthing. I mean, look, it's a very long story, but essentially, we've been working very, very hard. We had this fan base, a catalog of stuff behind us. We happened to walk into Netflix's door, right? After they'd seen a live show that like sold out in LA, one of our first live shows that we ever did. So we had this really like crazy, hungry audience. It didn't matter whether the show was good or not. That night was just like fire, right? If you were in that room, it's just one of those things you couldn't deny what it was that was going on, right? Whether you liked it or not. So we had executives from Netflix see that show. And then by the time we got around to developing the idea, getting the show together, and we only pitched it 3 times, and we walk into Netflix's door. This was still at the time, this was at the exact time where other streaming services didn't exist, but were starting to. There were whispers of them. So Netflix was in a position where they were like, we are going to lose heaps of our content that we have on here because it's going to go to these other studios and these other streaming services. We need to make as much original content as humanly possible. So that was one thing. And the other thing was, for some reason, Netflix went, and we're going to start a sketch department. And we're going to commission 4 sketch shows, right? So when we walk into their door, they are not only just looking for as much content as possible, they're specifically looking for sketch, and they're specifically looking for sketch that already has a voice, a package, an audience that could potentially come to Netflix and something that they could own. So all those ducks get lined up. If we walked into Netflix's door 3 months after we did, we wouldn't have a show.
Absolutely. Like if we'd heard that they were like, hey, Netflix has a sketch department. Okay, let's get together a pitch. Let's put it together. Let's organize flights. Like, too late.
By that time,
already too late.
By that time, that sketch department was actually already defunct.
Like,
Hey, they move fast to break things over there.
Yeah. It was wild. It was just crazy. And then on top of that, we pitched it in 2018. We get the show, we get the green light around about June, July, whenever it was, right? Contracting takes more than a year. We get to the point, I remember Sam being very, very big on this. Sam was just like, for some goddamn Sam Lingham reason, he was like, we are shooting this show in 2019, full stop, right? I don't care. We're doing it in 2019. And really pushed for us, even before contracts were signed and we knew it was going to happen, to start writing the show so that it would happen in 2019, because it was looking like if we didn't start writing the show even before we knew it was happening, it wouldn't happen. So we start doing that. It all ends up happening. We shoot the show. The last day of shooting was the last day before Christmas break of 2019. Now, I don't know if you remember what happened a couple of months later.
A vague inclination, yeah.
But had the project got delayed a week, it would have all gone over into 2020 and we wouldn't have a show. They cancelled Glow. They weren't going to keep our show.
Still hurts.
Yeah.
but then it
Still
also
hurts
arises that our show comes out in November 2020 when everyone's indoors with nothing to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I remember like being on Twitter that day and just being like, I can't read everything.
Yeah.
Like, it was also like, it also happened to be at the time where Australian comedy was feeling a bit weird, and us getting our show up in America felt like the vindication of a local industry.
Absolutely.
And I was like, oh, there's all this just goodwill and timing and stuff is all just kind of compounded into this one project. It was, there was
a real local boys dig good sort of headline to it all.
And it finally got you that show on the ABC that you've always wanted, which was The Real Big Fish, right?
Yeah.
To be honest, yes.
Yeah.
That was our dream from day one. Our dream was to have a show with ABC Comedy. That was absolutely what we wanted, and we had to get a Netflix show before
we could get that.
We could.
You've had a lot of great cameos in the sketches that you've done. You've had a lot of very famous people pop up. Is there someone that you thought, oh, we're not going to get this person, but then they did?
I mean, the one when we made ABC Coffee Cafe, there's a whole episode built around Rake. Richard Roxburgh. We had some other writers come help early on in the process, just ideating ideas out for that show of what could happen. And I think it was Vijayarajan was like, we could have Rake come in, and we were like, we're in the blue sky thing. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to step on that, because we can always that's really funny. That'd be great. I'd love that to happen. If that doesn't happen, we could ask someone else, or we could back up, or we could generic lawyer it. It's going to be fine, and then we sort of just kept going down the process of being like, we want Rake in, so we reached out to the creator, one of the creators of Rake, and sort of wrote them a letter being like, also, I am saying Rake, the character's name is Cleaver Green.
It's Cleaver Green.
We know that. We're just like, no, Rake is coming.
That's part of the joke, though.
Yeah, the joke is it's Rake. It's not.
And the whole time these emails are happening and whatever, we have a full plan for no Rake, because we're like, there will be no Rake.
Yeah.
There will be no Rake.
You've got a no Rake contingency.
Yeah. So, and then we sort of reached out to the first creator, and he was like, yeah, that's fine. I'm okay to that. I'm like, all right, sure thing. And then we sort of reached out to Richard Roxburgh, and we're like, we'd love, to come down. And obviously it's also like, it's an ABC comedy. There's no real budget. Like, there's not a lot of money. Like, no one works with us because they want money. It's all just like, do you want to come have fun for a day?
But what is so surprising is like, the creator of Rake said yes because they were a fan. They'd seen our stuff before. They're like, love those guys. Richard said yes because he'd seen the Netflix show. Yeah, love those guys. Come down, do it, right? That happens so much, where people that we just couldn't possibly imagine have the time or energy to watch our stuff.
The time as well. It's like you have to be here on this day.
Yeah.
Like, it's not we're flexible, we can shoot around you. It's like, no, this is when it's shooting.
But they've seen it, and then they're just like, yeah, I like that. I'll do that. That sounds sick, right? Yeah. But not always, because Matt Moran, who played Mouse in The Matrix, comes and reprises his character from The Matrix in Coffee Cafe to do just like one of the dumbest jokes we've ever written.
Beautiful.
And he didn't know who we were, and he watched our stuff on the plane from Sydney over and was like, I really liked it. And I was like, so why did you say yes to doing this? And he was just like, oh, I was lucky enough when I was younger in the 2000s to be a part of both, because he's also in Star Wars, has a little cameo in Star Wars. He was like, I was part of these two massive franchises and I was so lucky, and people still care about it. So anytime people do, I'm like, yeah, he embraces it, fully embraces. Like, yeah, I'll do that. I love doing that. Oh, what a cool dude.
Just going back to the production company, and you mentioned there Australian comedy feeling a bit weird and how much things have changed. And I know that one of your goals of the production company is to, amplify some of the voices that you see and that you want to give a little bit of a boost. First of all, how difficult is it to get started in comedy at the moment in Australia? For say, if you think of yourselves 13, 14 years ago, would you say, okay, in 2025 we'd still try and do the same thing?
I think one of the things that is not quite obvious, but is also like really a huge factor, is the cost of living crisis. Like, I think it is so much harder to be poor. And that's just a fundamental of starting out in the arts, is like, we didn't take any money out of Aunty Donna for 5 years. Yeah. I was able to work at a supermarket 3 days a week. That was enough to pay my rent. That was enough to get me food. And that was enough to see me through doing that. And I don't think it's the same case anymore. Like, I just don't think you can spend that much time, or you just need to work more, or you need to have rich parents, or you need to have some other thing that's going to allow you to explore that. And that's the one thing I think is really, I hate that, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah, the only upside, which is also a downside, is that now, like, online literacy is bigger and I think more common with people, and so you can sort of launch your career from your bedroom with your phone.
Yeah.
Like, that is possible. It doesn't happen for everyone, but it is possible. And so that's like a very big difference. But, the downside is that there's so much, there's endless content, endless. And sometimes it feels like such a roll of the dice. You could be making the best stuff and no one could be watching it. Like, that's the reality that we live in now, is that the quality of the content that you make almost doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it does. Obviously, it's a factor, but you can't compete against like a baby eating wasabi. Yeah. Like, you could, like, that's gonna like you can't. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's harder to get started, but it's maybe a little harder to be that, like, diamond in the rough potentially.
Yeah. So there's so much more rough.
Yeah.
When you make your decisions in terms of what you're going to back from a production company standpoint, so new projects or new talent that you're going to put your weight behind, as it were, are you primarily looking at the quality of what they're putting out and the fact that you think more people should see this and we think it's really good? Or are you primarily looking at, the potential reach, appeal, commercial elements? What's sort of coming first? Or is it more just looking at what's already working and saying we want to enable you to do more of that?
I mean, there's a couple distinctions there. I think something I would love to bring up now is Grouse House. So we have our production company, and then we also have a distribution arm or a brand, or this cool umbrella we call Grouse House. And it's this brand we built specifically for Australian weird cooked comedy. And that's what that is. So it's a YouTube channel, it's a podcast, it's live shows. But for us, it's a way of kind of, because I just love comedy. We're obsessed with it. And Australian comedy, especially the weird stuff, is really, really great. And there's often not a lot of pathways forward, or traditional pathways aren't necessarily available. Like, we had to go to Netflix to get a show, for example. Sam Campbell's moved to the UK, who's amazing. Aaron Chen's in New York. Like, it kind of is what happened. Or you find a means to, play ball with the traditional media community, or you find a way to engage your own crowd.
All the weirdos in Australia either burn out or need to go overseas to find an audience that, because niche audiences in countries that have a larger population are big enough to sustain a career. And weirdos are a bit more embraced, I think, especially on traditional media overseas, like people that are off kilter. And here, not so much. I think we're still very much about the straight cut Aussie larrikin. Like we love that. We still love that, or at least traditional media. The people who run traditional media still love that.
Yeah.
And but you know, it's not completely true. There are times when it does happen, but it's so rare, and even then, it's still very difficult to build your career here. So yeah, Grouse House came out of this idea of, can we try and build something for Australians in Australia, where at least that niche audience, there is a home for that niche audience, because there isn't right now, or there wasn't.
So it's just for us about building that community out of being like, hey, if you like Australian alt comedy, we're curating a bunch of it. Just please come over here, get involved. It's going to be a great time. And also for other people to be like, hey, if you want to make something, hopefully you can make something and have people who will appreciate it, see it. I know that sounds really simple, but I think it's something really, just really nice and connecting people who want to see stuff and make stuff is just a joy.
It must feel great for you guys, having come from where you've come from, to be able to do that for other people, and have the platform to do it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we can make them some money one day. Like, that'll feel better. Like, quite genuinely, like, finding the audience is great, but I think when I'll really feel good is when there is a legitimate alternative. This is our lofty ambition, but there is a legitimate alternative where you can get paid properly to make what you want to make without crazy network interference, without just a place where creators can be themselves. There is an audience and there is a model where you can make money off it.
Well, it's been so great to chat to you both. Thanks so much for spending so much time and tell us about your whole journey to get here, and long may it continue. People should definitely go check out, obviously, the Aunty Donna YouTube channel. They should go check out House of Fun on Netflix. They should go watch Coffee Cafe on ABC, and they should go check out Grouse House as well. And you have a new live show streaming via your Patreon as well.
But also, please jump on Grouse House. Next time you're between a series and you want something to watch, and you're just sitting down for dinner, chuck on Tabitha Booth, chuck on Finding Jesus. Finding
Jesus is really fun. Hug the Sun is wild. There's so much great stuff on there. So much great stuff.
It's really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And you'll be supporting, young Aussie talent as you're entertained. So it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much to both of you. Really appreciate your time. Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you, Andrew.
You too.
A final message from our partners at HubSpot. Breeze, their built-in AI, is changing how work gets done. It handles the busy work so you can get back to creative, strategic thinking. And honestly, couldn't we all use a little bit more of that?